This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
Of the world's largest cock statue that is unfinished. We bring you the Nerdy Manroom show with your host, Hassel and Monster. Monster, we have a massive slew of news this week. Kick us off, baby.
Yeah, we do. We actually, before we even get into that, we promised everybody we were doing Star Wars this week, but we planned on having a special guest, and unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts, that didn't take place this week. But we were able to work that out so that next week we can actually have that episode, and we've got our guests able to join us. So we had to push that back a week, but we wanted to push it back to make sure we included them and gave the fans everything that they want to hear on that one. So actually worked out pretty well too, because what we're going to talk this week, as you said, we have a massive amount of news. I left the country for a week and came back and spent an entire day trying to figure out how much news I actually missed.
How was Bizarro World?
Not too bad. It's actually, it snowed the entire time I was there. I was in Canada for the weekend. It was not bad at all. Snowed the entire time until I was ready to go home, and then the temperature went back up, and I was like, "Geez, it's warm." I was outside without a jacket on, and but I was able to find a few good collectibles up there. Picked up a few other things, a couple of surprises I can't say right now, just because they're Christmas presents. But yeah, I was able to pick up a lot of stuff that I can't get in the States, and they're like, "What do you mean you can't get this?" Well, our shipping is terrible. I was like, "Oh, this stuff keeps showing up regularly. We've had it for months, and we can't get rid of it." I actually bought a Marvel Legends Quasar, and he was on clearance for like $5 off because they've had them for so long. I was like, "Yeah,
I do miss a good Toys R Us, like what you had up there. Man, that's something special."
Yeah, and since you mentioned toys, that's going to be our since it's been on everybody's mind and lips, past couple of weeks, is we're actually going to talk about the crowdfunding projects and Haslab in particular, and what that means for the market going forward. But before we get into that, as you said, we have a ton of news, so we can pick off some of that. And I thought I'd kick us in with some movie and TV news, because as we all know, big weekend this weekend for movies. Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm sure you're trying to go see it. I've already got my tickets. I'm going Saturday at like 3
I have not been
afternoon.
I haven't set my fat ass in a theater since before COVID. So this will be the first time I actually venture out into the wild. And believe me, I didn't not go because of COVID. I'm just anti-social as fuck. So this will be the first time that I venture out into the wild, and opening weekend at that, and fight off little screaming children and tell them to get out of my damn seat so I can watch Spider-Man. So pretty stoked about it, though.
Yeah, I am.
I'm wondering if it meets expectations, which, to be honest, let's kind of be fair here. The bar has been set so high anyways, and then there's so much that people are going to expect because of leaked rumors or, things that was put out there. It's going to be kind of hard to really meet the expectations, but I'm pretty excited.
I am as well. I think you have to go into it with an open mind of, okay, I'm wanting all this, but I will be happy if I get at least this, because otherwise the bar has been set like all this stuff is going to happen. All these people are going to be in it. But if somebody's not, is that going to shoot the entire movie down? Or it shouldn't, because everything looks good regardless. Yes. It's just, there are.
Well, we've heard so many rumors. The rumors are here. I'm like trying to set the bar about right here. Like, I pretty well expect this from just what we've seen. Based off what we've seen, I'm already here. So I'm trying to stay there, and then anything we get is a bonus out.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of as you keep mentioning the rumors about it, so many more rumors and so many Marvel projects going on. But one of the things that has been confirmed, and it's not confirmed for Spider-Man, but Kevin Feige came out and said, "Hey, Charlie Cox is our Daredevil. He would be." His quote was, "He would be the actor playing Daredevil." But he has not said when or where.
Daredevil, he will, but they would not recast. He didn't come out and say he's Daredevil. He just said that were they to have Daredevil, he would be it.
Yeah, and most people are assuming he's in Spider-Man. I'm thinking that if he is going to show up and they do keep him and they don't recast or do something different, then he's probably going to be in She-Hulk. Another
Yeah,
lawyer in there. I can see him easily fitting into that realm.
that's a no-brainer cameo right there. Did you see where they did announce they've greenlit Venom 3 and that they said he will have a spider emblem come Venom 3?
I heard that it was greenlit. I did not hear about the spider emblem, so that's pretty interesting.
That kind of broke yesterday. I believe it was on Toy News International was where I'd seen it. But they have said that while it is greenlit and that by Venom 3 he will have a spider insignia on his
Excellent.
chest.
So maybe he's going to be in some way. He might pop up in No Way Home. I mean, they still never said who the sixth of the Sinister Six is. So.
Yeah, well, they're kind of alluding to the fact that we're in the post-credit scene in Venom 2. They talk about multiverses and how the symbiotes have the hive mind. Kind of delving into the null thing or whatever. So they're kind of alluding to the fact that maybe because of the way the symbiotes are, even across multiverses, they feel what happens to other versions of themselves. So it's kind of throwing in there to what might have happened to the Topher Grace Venom.
Yeah.
Like he wants retribution for what happened to the previous version of himself due to a Spider-Man.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That makes more sense than just licking the screen and saying you when you got no damn clue who he is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and so Marvel's still been dropping other news this week too, or in the past couple weeks, I should say. Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania, the cast T-shirts give you the first look of Kane for the movie, which looks very comic accurate. I'm excited to see how that looks.
I was really, really worried with the way they done him in Loki. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Loki. I was worried they would probably stray away from the look a little too much to respect the actor. And so I was pretty happy to see the blue face, the purple helmet, what we expect from Kane.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy with that.
Again, it was just a shot on the T-shirt, but I'm pretty sure that that's probably what they're alluding to, and it's gonna probably not stray too far from that by the time it comes out.
No, well, they purposely do things like that. I mean, when they refilmed the M Street remake, I mean, the guy that played Freddy, he had a cup of coffee and he had the new glove in there. That's how they broke out the new glove. Promo wise was you seen him with his cup of coffee and the glove was grabbing for it. That's the first shot everyone had of the redesigned glove, which stunk, but
Yeah.
This, however, does not.
Well, and we've got some other Marvel stuff too. Kobe Smulders, I may have butchered her name very terribly, but she's confirmed that she's coming back as Maria Hill, going to be in the Secret Invasion show they're doing for Disney Plus. And also the Shang-Chi director and filmmaker, Destin Daniel, I believe his name, he signed a deal for Shang-Chi sequel as well as a as yet unnamed MCU show for Disney Plus. So interested to see what they come up with there. I'm not sure exactly where they're going with that one, but I'd actually like to see him do something with Iron Fist or something, just from the way
I would love to see Iron Fist. I think it would be the natural progression of part 2 myself. It's been kind of alluded to the Disney Plus series that he's going to do is a 10 Rings series with his sister, but no confirmation. It's all
you mentioned that
rumor and innuendo. So
you mentioned that to me a couple of days ago, and I looked it up, and that was rumored back in October, and we've heard nothing else about it since. I don't know. Maybe that's what he's working on. I'm not sure, but he signed a full deal with them last week. So interesting there. DC's got a ton of stuff going on too. HBO Max Peacemaker debuts in January on January 13th. Also saw that they're working on a Metal Men animated feature. I guess that's going to be the next animated feature because I hadn't heard what the next one was, but most of their animated features have been pretty good. And I've enjoyed a lot of them.
Good job with those. They do a really good job with those, even if they are a little off the beaten path sometimes. But they're a very enjoyable watch usually.
Yeah, well, what may not be an enjoyable watch is their next CW TV show. They're doing a show called Gotham Nights. Now, I thought it was going to be similar to the game, but then I got into it and I saw, well, first of all, the Batwoman producers are doing it, and I got to tell you, out of all the CW shows, that is the worst one to try. I tried to get through the first season and couldn't even finish the first season, so I haven't watched it since, but it's just terrible. But the premise of this is that Bruce Wayne is murdered, at some point, and they didn't say as Batman or as Bruce Wayne, but everybody assumes Bruce Wayne's been murdered, and his adopted son, they don't say which one, so I don't know if this is Dick, Jason, or whatever, is blamed for it, along with the kids of a bunch of different villains. So he puts this team together of all these villains, kids, and himself, and they start protecting Gotham and while trying to clear their names of the murder of Bruce Wayne. I'm like, that makes zero sense.
Isn't that pretty much the premise of the new Gotham Nights game coming out? I mean, aren't
Except,
those kind of tit for tat?
well, except for the fact that all of the Gotham Knights game is strictly Batgirl, Red Hood, Robin, and Nightwing. This is only one Robin of some description, they don't say, and then the villains' kids. Like, if Mr. Freeze has a kid or if Joker has a child, that's whose team. I was like, that makes zero sense to me. So
I'm willing to bet right now they're going to try to capitalize on this wokeness of Tim Drake, and that's going to be their Robin, and they're going to shove that down your throat.
probably so, because Batwoman is, out of all those shows, and I don't get into it very politically a lot of times, but Batwoman is the only one that's really, it's not the only one, but it's the one that is the wokest out of all their woke shows they do. Everything in that show has a premise of it's because of this or because of that from the current culture, and I'm not really a fan of that. So I just want to see the character, and if you do the character well, I don't care about the rest of it.
Well, see, with network television, I always would let one season get by just to see if it's even picked up for a second season before I even try, because I've been burnt too many times where you start investing and then they say, nope, no second season. Like that Terminator Genesis series, great. But you never got any payoff. It was canceled after one season. I mean, Fox is a lot the worst about it. The CW is kind of hit and miss, and like when I knew once Batwoman didn't return, when you're recasting come season 2, there's problems with the show.
Yeah,
I'm not investing in this.
And there's a ton of different rumors. She started the whole thing about everybody treated her badly and everything, and then everybody on the cast and crew was like, "No, it was all her." She treated all of us terrible. Like we were.
I think she was
her.
a Brie Larson. Was pretty much what I was gathering.
She might have been worse than that. And then I'm using that term as that term. I don't know enough about her from any of her other stuff to know how she is, but in the way you use that, her name is that terminology. Yeah, that's kind of the
it was another B, but hey, we'll go with Brie.
Yeah, well, since you're talking about the shows being canceled, Netflix is kind of bad about this too, and they just actually canceled their Cowboy Bebop show, which was based on the anime. And you're either torn. You either hated the anime and you love the show, or you liked the anime and you hated the live action show. I've seen nobody in the middle of that. I actually hated the anime and liked the live action show, but
I've seen a lot of really good reviews of it online. I mean, people and like some of our friends group and whatnot have really praised it, but Netflix kind of burned me with Jupiter's Legacy.
Yeah,
I loved it, and it had such a great build up for a second season, and then there was like, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't get a lot of my streaming services in Canada, and I was watching Netflix because that was the one that I get up there, and it pops up on the watch list. You want to rewatch Jupiter's Legacy? It's like, no, you asshole. I don't want to rewatch it.
I want season 2, you motherfucker.
Exactly.
I mean,
something that is getting season 2, though. Witcher season 2 premieres this Friday on the 17th. Now, I'm going to have to wait till after I see Spider-Man to really dig into The Witcher and sit there and binge it, because I don't want to start binging that, get halfway through, and then have to go watch Spider-Man and come back to it, because they don't mix very well. But I will be binging that most of the weekend.
My fiance totally heckled me last weekend, because when I realized it was coming on, it might have been a week and a half ago, I realized it was coming up this Friday. I set an alarm on my phone so that I wouldn't forget. And it's just, I put it on my calendar so that it'll pop up and remind me. She said, "What are you doing?" I forget which day Witcher comes on. I mean, and I just got judged really hard that afternoon.
Yeah.
For like a good 2 hours.
Well, I know the feeling. And since we're talking about video game shows and movies, have you seen that Sonic the Hedgehog has got a second movie coming out, and the second trailer for it? The trailer for it dropped the other day. I actually
you know what? I didn't watch the first one, but this looks actually enjoyable. I will say that.
The first one was actually pretty good too once you got into it. Now it started off sort of slow, but once you got into it, it got pretty good. And then this one actually looks just as good. It's set to come out April 8th of next year.
And I love the actor as Forks and Knuckles. He doesn't do much that I don't enjoy. So I mean, I think I'm gonna have to go back and watch Sonic 1 just so I can watch this. And
It's
Jim Carrey looks a lot more Robotnik this time than he did in the last movie. I think that was some of what kind of, and he may
yeah,
have been bald by the end of the movie. I'm not sure. I
yeah.
actually didn't
It
watch.
sets you up for him to start out where he's at and then end up being Robotnik by
Okay,
the end of the movie. But it was still an enjoyable watch.
it gave me a lot of Sega Genesis vibes when I was watching the trailer. Like you hear the coins, you see Tails, you
Yeah,
see Knuckles. Jim Carrey's knocking Robotnik Parker and the fact that he doesn't have the big gut. I mean, but he's got the mustache, so I'm fine. You know, I'm
yeah.
cool with it. It actually looks like I may go kidnap some little 6-year-old kid just so I can go watch this movie. I'm not sure. It depends on if it's streaming or not.
I haven't heard yet, but being next year, there's no telling because they're trying to get back out of the streaming and sending people to the theater now. But we'll see. Speaking on that, I don't think I actually threw it in our notes, but Eternals drops on in January onto the Disney Plus system. So
I'm pretty ready for that. I want to see it. I just didn't want to see it enough to pay.
yeah. Well, like a couple other streaming notes too. The Boys has an animated series called Diabolical coming out next year in 2022.
Is it
I
going to
have
be on Amazon?
Yeah, it's an Amazon Prime
Yeah.
show, and it's set up to be stories somewhere inside the Boys TV show universe, but maybe happening concurrent to what you see on the show, or maybe a day in between some of the things or whatever. So it ties into it directly, but it's all animated, and they made a point of saying they're animating it because they're trying to take it to that next level that they can't fully do all the time on the Boys because
Did you watch
they're
The
pretty
Boys?
graphic as well.
Did you actually watch The Boys?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and
I wasn't
it's
sure if that was one of the ones you actually gave a chance or not because I loved it.
I thought it was
It's
great. I mean,
very great.
it's pretty graphic. So I'm like, what else can you do in the cartoon that you haven't done live action? So that's got to be an interesting playoff
It's almost
there.
worrisome a little bit because they
Yeah.
push the envelope on this show a good bit. They push it to the edge.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then I think the last thing I had for movies and TVs is Halo actually has a series coming out next year on Paramount Plus. I watched the trailer. It looked okay. I'm not a huge Halo fan. The kid wants to watch it because he likes the game a little bit, so I'll give it a chance to see how it goes. But I didn't see a date when it actually dropped, other than saying next year. And I
I'm
thought it was
sure
animated at
our poor
first, but it's
Casey
live
will love
action.
that, but I'm not. I've never been sold on the games myself. I've dabbled in on a time or two. They never drew me in like that.
Yeah, it's never been my thing really either. But I'm gonna give it a shot, see how the show is. But since we're on video games and show wise, a lot of new video game news this week too. Star Wars and DC dropped a pretty good bit of news. I know they had some video game awards this past week, so I think a lot of it came out of there. But Star Wars Eclipse, this may be the open world game you and I were talking in a previous episode.
I was curious about that when I watched the trailer for that.
But this is an early development. They showed a trailer, but I haven't seen any news on when it drops or exactly what the gameplay is, other than it looks like it's open world of some sort. Uh,
Well, the villain at the end, I mean, is I don't know. To me, I want an open world Star Wars game, but I do want characters that we know and love as well. I mean, I understand you can't really voice cast some of these characters, because I mean half the cast is passed on, unfortunately, and
right.
Mark Hamill does not sound like Luke Skywalker anymore, and he's very gruff. And let's face it, Harrison Ford is too big, no matter what it is, to do a voiceover for Han Solo. But yeah, I would love to have some, at least like with Force Unleashed. He delved enough into a character you can invest in this new with a good supporting cast of you
Yeah.
know characters that you know and love already. So I'm kind of curious: are they going to go that route at some point, or is this going to be like Knights of the Old Republic era where no one and it's
Uh,
totally fresh?
I think that's the one thing I did catch from it is I'm pretty sure that's set in the High Republic, which is what the current comic series is, which is after Knights of Old Republic, which is not canon anymore, but before well before uh, anything we've seen movie wise, right? And I think like in the comic book series for the High Republic, Yoda is is already a Grand Master, but he is not like the only Grand Master on the Jedi Council. It's not like he's fresh to it for that purpose. And then they've shown him only a time or two, but
so it's
it's not
probably
like
200 Yavin or whatever they call it before.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the books because they actually give you a timeline in the front of all the issues of where this general arc is at in there. But I don't.
And if our boy Vanilla Swole don't give me some credit for trying to reach out with a Yavin there, I'm going to have to get him because that was just for him.
BBY, Before the Battle of Yavin.
There you go.
They do have another game coming out too, though. It looks like it's a Switch and mobile device game called Star Wars Hunters. I'm assuming it's based on some kind of bounty hunting game. It looks like you got Jedi as well as Sith that are doing bounty hunting, which is kind of weird. I didn't actually watch the trailer. Don't know much about it in general, other than this when it's dropping, which is just next year, and I haven't seen a specific date for it yet. Besides Star Wars dropping video games, DC dropped a few trailers and announcements during that award show too. I think they dropped a trailer for the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game, which we've heard of before, but they gave us a little more details. A third-person shooter style coming out in 2022 on pretty much all the regular consoles, the PlayStation, Xbox. It's on PC as well, but I didn't see it for Switch, which is not uncommon. I mean, they don't carry a lot of these games, unfortunately, anyway.
I don't think you know the graphics, but did you get a real Guardians of the Galaxy vibe out of that? The way they were trying to do Suicide Squad?
Kind of, and I'll admit, it's mostly just trailer to trailer to me because I still haven't even tried Guardians of the Galaxy because I got it, and then I was out of the house, and then I was
don't be a badass
gone.
and put it on hard. I did that like a dumbass, thinking, how challenging can this be? I'm really wishing I went easy to medium at this point because, there's several points I've got stuck and had to do the old YouTube. So, yeah.
Yeah, I usually try them on medium first because I am not that skilled at it. So, but yeah, it kind of looks like from the trailer. But like I said, I haven't even played the game yet because as soon as I got it, I was house sitting, and then I was out of town, and then I was like, I haven't had a chance to even turn it on. So
it had a little too much humor in it for my taste, and I'm gathering Brainiac is the real villain of the story, but the only Justice Leaguer it shows is Flash, who, don't get me wrong, if he were villainous, could be a real nightmare to even the Justice League, let alone the Suicide Squad. So
yeah, it looks interesting. I'll probably give it a try when it comes out. But then they also announced a Wonder Woman game. It's a third-person open-world game. I did not see any trailers for it unless you did, but all I saw was the announcement, and that was it. And it was just announced this past week. Like I said, during that award show, they showed that trailer for Suicide Squad Kill Justice League, and they went straight to that Wonder Woman announcement. Didn't really have much detail other than that, honestly. But since we're talking comics anyway, there was a lot of comic news come out in the last week or so. Marvel has, and I know I'm jumping properties from DC to Marvel, but Marvel has dropped a few books that I looked into a little bit. Captain Carter miniseries comic. It's based on the MCU What If character from the What If TV show. I wasn't a huge fan of that, so I probably won't read it, but that is coming out starting in March. It just didn't appeal to me enough to want to jump on it.
I enjoyed the episode, not enough to invest. She's an interesting character, but, I mean, it's a what if. I mean, typically, if it's not 616 universe, I don't bother. I'm not, other than that Exiles book they pulled out, I'm not real big on the other dimensions or whatnot.
I like the what if when it is the what if book and it's standalone issues or a miniseries arc inside that book. I don't really buy a whole lot of them that are outside. I say that I'll get a few every now. Like that Dark Ages book, I thought was going to be in the main timeline. It wasn't, but it's been a pretty decent little read real quickly. I mean, it's nothing major.
I enjoyed What If growing up, and I enjoy the animated series. It's enjoyable, but it's not something I'd invest, $3.99 a book at. And Captain Carter is not going to be it if I were.
Well, and I don't always mind, especially when it's like a what if they're doing a gender swap or a role swap with somebody else. But they seem to be doing a lot of that just to be doing it. Like the next new series they announced is coming out in March is actually Strange, which is going to be the new pickup for Doctor Strange, since they're having Death of Doctor Strange right now, and they're trying to promote. I'm sure they're going to have him come back no matter what before the movie comes out. But in this new series, it's picking up after after his death, and his wife Clea is actually going to be taking up the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme while she's trying to figure out is there any way to bring Steven back?
So was now the proper time to really kill him? I mean, he's fixing to be a massive part.
That's my point. It's like why are we doing that?
Yeah.
And again, I don't mind them doing something with her character because she's a good character, but at the same time, why are we doing this knowing we're just going to turn around and hand it right back? It's like you did a swap just to do a swap and say, oh, there's a new female Sorcerer Supreme for about 2 months, and then we're going to turn around and give you Doctor Strange back before his movie comes out for sure. So,
but in all fairness, I mean, the new Spider-Man drops Friday, and right now Ben Reilly's Spider-Man. So,
but Peter Parker's not completely gone.
Well, he's not dead, but he's
still in the
up with
book
cancer
somewhere.
in a bed. I mean,
yeah, and you know, while we're talking about some of these new series, they've actually got a new X-Men series called Immortal X-Men, which is picking up after Inferno. It's going to focus on the Quiet Council and the fallout from Inferno and the lives and deaths of Wolverine. I'll admit I'm not reading the lives and deaths of Wolverine. I really could care less to read a solo Wolverine story. I like him in the team, not by himself for the most part. But Inferno's been okay. They're just kind of revealing the secrets that they started at the very beginning of this whole run. And now that the oh man, what's his name? The guy that started the run, I can't even think of his name right. Hickman. Now that he's left and they've just been left holding the bag, they're like, how are we going to end this? So it's like they're trying to figure out what to do next.
Did you see where Chris Claremont was not a fan of Hickman at all?
I like some of Hickman's stuff. I don't.
He had some really minced words, I guess would be the nicest way to say it, because they said that they asked him what he thought of Hickman's run, and they said it took him some time to find something nice to say.
Well, I'm kind of the same way. Like I like some of the idea of it, but at the same, I like some of the characters they're using. That's the best way I could put it, because there's a lot of characters that don't get usage that he's trying to use, but at the same time, this whole thing of we're on our own nation and we're in charge of everything now does not do it for me. They're supposed to be fighting for the world that hates and fears them, right? Not being apart from it.
And I'm all for finding a way to resurrect a ton of mutants at one time, because I'm not a fan of Grant Morrison's murdering them all off.
Yeah, me either.
Excuse me, but at the same time, I'm not a fan of this endless run of immortality where they just keep coming back. Why would you invest or care about the character if they'll just bring him back next issue?
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm not a fan of it, but I'm still reading it. But I think the most intriguing comic news I saw this past week was so IDW. It's been leaked that IDW is losing the license to the Hasbro brand properties they have, like G.I. Joe and Transformers, and apparently Robert Kirkman's company, Skybound Comics. I've actually never even heard of them, is trying to pick it up.
I wasn't aware he had broke away from IDW. Honestly, or Image. He was with Image. I'm sorry. I was unaware he had broke away from them, but
and I don't know.
I'm a fan of anything Kirkman does, and if he gets his hands on Joe's and Transformers, I will pick that up.
I like some of his stuff, but his stuff seems to kind of have a niche to me, and I'm not sure how well he will do with the robots and the Transformers. I think he could do okay with the Joes because it's a war type thing, but I'm not sure how he'll do with the Transformers. But I might pick those up. I am actually picking up that Saturday Morning Adventures G.I. Joe book that IDW is fixing to start publishing. That looks pretty interesting. I pre-ordered it just to see how it ties in.
It piqued my interest. I said I haven't bought a lot of books. I have a matter of fact, I got a stack at our buddy Kevin's shop. The Zone in Tifton. I got a shout out to them. I got to go by there and pick up my Amazing Spider-Man Beyonds. It has been 3 or 4 issues, but
so are you getting
those were the first issues I had bought in quite a while.
Before we jump to the next news thing, are you getting just the Beyond issue? Are you getting just the main issues, or are you getting the Point Beyond issues as well?
I'm getting everything with Ben Reilly.
Okay, yeah, because I've just been buying the main series like Amazing Spider-Man, but I don't buy the Amazing Spider-Man 81 Point BEY. So it's like a half issue in between every issue, and I haven't been buying those.
I've told them anything Ben Reilly pulled for me, I'll probably buy the Miles Morales issues that have been in there. I'm not a fan of the new Miles Morales outfit. It looks like just utter trash. And I'm a Miles Morales fan. That's what sucks about it. I was not sure why they had a really great costume. It was kind of iconic what they had.
I don't understand the change either, unless it's something to do with the new movie that they're doing for him, the next Spider-Verse movie. But I didn't even see it in that, so I don't know.
It
That
looks
one's
like a
really
really
confusing.
cheap knockoff of Kane's Scarlet Spider. I mean, I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah. Well, I know I kind of side railed us a little bit there, but we're going to get into the toy news, which there's a ton of toy news that's dropped in the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
Transformers. So Bumblebee Studio Series Wave 1's up for pre-order now for an April release date. It's Bumblebee movie styling of the figures from the Bumblebee movie. It's Shockwave, Wheeljack, Soundwave, Ratchet, and Brawn. And I'll admit, some of them look kind of but some of them to be more realistic, but still have that cartoon aesthetic. Like the Brawn they made looks really good. The Shockwave looks really good.
Isn't it sad that a John Cena Transformers movie was as close as we've got to G1 Transformers?
So far, I mean,
That cutscene to Cybertron was, dude.
And see, that's the thing. All these figures, the aesthetic is based on how they looked in that Cybertron, but they didn't have transform modes for most of them, so they're having to take. This is what it looked like on screen. So here's how we'll engineer it to be. It may not look like the G1, like the Braun one looks more like a motorcycle than it does an actual little truck.
Yeah, I was curious about that.
But they had to take their bodies and say, okay, this is what we gave us on screen for the bodies, but since we didn't transform them, how can we engineer this to be a transforming vehicle of some type?
What does Soundwave turn into? Because he had his boombox transformed mode. Well, he didn't transform into boombox, but you know what I'm saying. His robot mode was what the boombox version of him was.
Yeah, I'd have to look. I don't remember what he actually looked like. My little one likes to order those and have characters for his collection, but he wants them to be G1, and that Brawn is the only. We didn't get a Brawn in the War for Cybertron line, so he wants me to order that so it can fit somewhat into his line. So that's the only one he's really tried to order. So I didn't really look at the others very closely. Monster. Do what?
Dependable parenting right there, brother.
Yeah, so I had to pre-order that one. I had to wait till I got back home because they went for pre-order last week, and I was like, well, Hasbro Pulse doesn't want to let me order in Canada since I have a U.S. account. So interesting cross-the-border things. Star Wars has some new pre-orders go up last week. The Boba Fett from the Book of Boba Fett in the Black Series. I know that's still up for pre-order now. I think a lot of this stuff is sold out on Hasbro Pulse, but like on Big Bad and some of the other stores, they're still up. And that one looks like it's coming out in July. It's $34.99.
But with Big Bad, they're going to ship so late anyways. They'll sell beyond their capacity and just fill the order when they do. Because a lot of the NECA figures that I pre-ordered, that's well beyond them hitting shelves in various other places. I still haven't got them. So, but yeah, that Boba Fett looks really good. I wasn't a fan of the unarmored version where he's got the tunic or whatever.
Yeah.
And, just prior to him getting the armor back, I didn't order that one, and it'll probably kick me in the ass, and that'll be the one that skyrockets in value because it's the one Boba Fett figure ever where he's, unarmored, but I wasn't a fan of it.
This new one looks amazing. I mean, it's a very good likeness, and I love the way it looks. I don't buy too many Star Wars figures myself, short of a few Jedi and the occasional one or two characters here and there, but that one looks really good. If I was going to order a Boba Fett, I'd probably go for that one or the carbonized one they did. It was the Return of the Jedi one.
Well, that's the one figure that they've done recently, modern figure, that I will say that I come close to getting a sideshow of because the new rendering of that with the sideshow looks really good.
And it's kind of hard to segue from Hasbro and Star Wars to Super 7, but I got to bring the Super 7 one up because, we've talked several times that have they jumped the shark by doing the Simpsons.
We're about to jump it right here on the Nerdy Manroom show.
But now we've hit Animaniacs Ultimates Wave 1. And I don't like the Animaniacs necessarily, the Wacko, Yakko, and Dot, except the occasional little thing here and there that they do, the occasional little skit. I love Pinky and the Brain, but I don't need figures of Pinky and the Brain.
They were humorous growing up. I don't, but you know what? I love Tiny Toons too, and I still don't want Tiny Toon figures from Super 7.
No, but if you want to watch Tiny Toons, they are on Hulu.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to have to check that out.
Along with that, some other cartoon news. Masters of the Universe, PowerCon. You're going to have to come up here this coming year because it's only an hour and a half away from me.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Columbus, Ohio, August 5th through the 7th. And that's the largest He-Man, Ninja Turtles, and Thundercats convention they do in the country. This is strictly to just those properties. Usually it's out in California, or I've seen it a couple of times in like one of the Carolinas and stuff. But yeah, the last few have been out towards California. This is actually going to be in Columbus, Ohio, next August. So you're going to have to come up here so we can go.
With it being in August, let's go ahead and we'll say this live and in color right now. I'm going to attempt to make this venture. You're going to get my fat ass on a plane. I'm going to fly out, and we're going to go to this, and we're going to break live the Nerdy Manroom show from the con.
That would be fun, and you know it'll be fun to go there. Period, because I haven't been to too many cons in a while. I mean, we get a few little ones here and there that I've gone to, but that one is not too far away. And honestly, I got in trouble the other day because I've taken maybe 10 out of my. I don't even know if I've gotten 10. I haven't even finished them yet because they're actually coming up for the Christmas holiday. But my vacation schedule, they're like, how many days you take? Because you can roll 5 over. I've got like 17 or 18 left because I've got 3 weeks and I've used like holidays. They're like, oh my gosh.
And I'm overdue for a con. I haven't been one in quite a while. Me and the lovely are going to Days of the Dead in February in Atlanta. It'll be her first con ever. So I'm kind of excited to see how she interacts in that environment. So who knows? We may drag her up there to PowerCon too and make her be the camera lady.
Oh, we can do that. And since before we jump ahead to the next few, since we are on Masters of the Universe, and it is the holiday season, everybody needs to see the holiday He-Man's hanging out on my desk. He's bringing the power of Christmas with his candy cane sword.
You know what? I feel festive as fuck just looking at that. Even though his sword does look like a Christmas tree cake, the fat boy in me just struck, but I'm just saying.
Hey, it was one of those pieces I could not resist. I still watch that He-Man and She-Ra Christmas special every year with my kid. So
I've been killing some Thundercats lately, so I can't say anything.
I went to bed to Thundercats all this week so far. So, but while we're on toy news, DC Mcfarland Toys has had a lot of stuff come out. So it looks like they had some listings on Amazon. These are already officially announced and scheduled for release, even though there was no official announcement anywhere. The Amazon listing is the official announcement, but there's a 2-pack of the Dark Knight Superman versus Batman that's coming out in February, and one called Solar Superman that's supposed to come out in February, and that's all we have of it is the name of it. But there's a lot of speculation it's the black suit, regenerative black suit from Death and Return, but I don't know what else it would be. But
do we get a mullet? That is the question. Do we get a mullet and a beard?
If you don't, it's not worth buying him.
No, God no. He's just a cheap repaint at that point.
Yeah, and then they also listed an Endless Winter Batman for this coming out in April. I don't know if you read that. Endless Winter was a mini series they did last year, fighting some kind of Frost King or whatever, and Batman's got this Arctic white suit on, and that's basically all it is. It's him in a big coat and a white suit. That
wasn't the one where he had the Joker head and a lantern, was it?
No, that was White Knight. Okay. I think. Some other
shows you how much I've covered with DC.
Some other Mcfarland news. The other Blackest Night figures that were leaked are a Build-A-Figure wave, and these were just leaked. There's no official announcement, so we don't know for 100% certainty we're getting these. But the Build-A-Figure is a Blackest Night set. The Build-A-Figure is Atrocitus Red Lantern. There's a Kyle Rayner in the set. They didn't say which one of his uniforms. I'd imagine his most common one.
Actually, the picture I seen, well, the news broke on the site that I looked at. I forget which site it was. I believe I sent you the picture.
Yeah.
The picture was the first appearance, Kyle Rayner. What's iconic for Kyle.
Yeah, and that's the same suit he went back to. The only difference in the last suit he went back to with that is that he changed the lantern symbol back to the standard lantern symbol versus that dual one he had.
Okay.
And then the mask may have been a little bit smaller too.
I like the big mask. It was what set him apart from the others.
Yeah, it was different. I kind of liked him myself, but I always liked this character anyway. He wasn't Hal, but I still liked him. Who else was in that set? Black Lantern, Batman, and Superman. Deathstorm, which is the Black Lantern version of Firestorm. And then 2 oddball characters that I do not understand why they're in that set, but Killer Croc and Man Bat.
If
if
I'm
they
not
come,
mistaken, those characters they're calling them oversized mega figures. So I'm not sure they're actually in the Build-A-Figure line. I think
okay,
they're actually, the deluxe figures. I would assume.
that would make more sense because I did not understand why. And I
Yeah,
saw that they had the mega figs, but I didn't know if that was the whole wave was being called that or something. But I
no,
did not get
I
that.
believe those two figures there were set apart as which I'm sure there are some different figures that's going to be. You feel like that line there, but
Yeah,
those were the mega deluxe figures, so they'll probably be, were I to guess, 9 inches or so, because the typical McFarlands are about a good 7. They're good sized figures, anyways.
yeah. Yeah, well, and that's what they've got coming up for DC. But Marvel's got we haven't heard from Marvel Legends team in a while, which is kind of weird because they used to like drop stuff in every other week or every week at some points. But
Are
they
they
actually
tending
have
to Rancor wounds? Are they helping out the Star Wars team right now and trying to get them
they're,
back up?
they're probably looking at them saying, "Well, ours succeeded. What happened with yours?"
Poking it like a dead animal, like, move, do something.
Yeah, but they have actually a fan first Thursday this week. So this Thursday they'll be having a show. Um, I'm assuming it's mostly going to be Spider-Man related items since the movie drops this weekend. But I would love to see something different, like another X-Men wave with Siren, because I need her for my X-Force set, because my X-Force 3-pack's supposed to be here next week.
Whatever works for Monster. We don't worry about the rest of us.
Yeah, screw everybody else.
I mean, it's whatever works. It's your world, baby. We're just living in it.
I need a Speedball and an Avenger set so I can finish my New Warrior shelf. But whatever.
Well, he's rumored for an upcoming set, is he not?
So is Siren. That's why I was picking on those two. But yeah, they're both rumored, but we haven't seen anything. We haven't really seen anything from Marvel Legends since they did their PulseCon, which was back in October. It's been kind of quiet from them, other than, hey, don't forget your stuff's coming out eventually.
Yeah.
But also we've got some other studios doing stuff for them. There's a classic Loki in 1/6 scale from Hot Toys. All we got's a teaser so far. I don't know a date or a price or anything. And then Iron Studios did a statue, and I think this thing's pretty funny looking. But it's a 1/10 scale, the Loki Alligator. That is actually up for pre-order now, coming out in third quarter of 2022. If it didn't have a price tag of $100, I might would consider it, just because that one was kind of different. But it's about the size of an ashtray, and I just don't need a $100 ashtray sitting on my desk with a Loki Alligator.
No.
But while on Iron Studios, have you seen that they've picked up some other licenses?
Those
And
Thundercats, they done look really, really
yeah,
nice.
they've gotten Masters of the Universe, Thundercats, and Ninja Turtles. Now, they haven't shown anything from Ninja Turtles, but we've got a Mumron Mutants Iron Studios preview, and they've also shown their Prince Adam statue, which was
Have they
amazing.
done an Atom? I hadn't seen the Atom. I've seen
Yeah.
the Thundercats and the Mumron the Mutants. I have not seen Thundercats.
The Prince Adam one is actually him in the middle of the transformation when he first holds up the sword, and they captured the scene from the show perfectly, and actually made it look more realistic, I guess, from that, because that animation was very smooth, and he looks more humanized in this, but it's a perfect representation of that one.
Okay, do we got a little lightning around the sword?
I didn't see it on the first pictures I saw, so I don't know if they're doing something different, because sometimes they make some of those and then they'll give you swappable pieces where you can swap it out with some of that stuff in there. But all I saw was one picture of it, and it didn't have lightning on that one. But I'm hoping they have some extra pieces in there. Now I'm as much as I love those, I'm not a statue collector because they get too expensive for me. But
yeah,
I don't buy many of them. But yeah, I would almost consider that one. And then I think the last thing we had on our toy news, which is going to lead us perfectly into talking about crowdfunded projects, which is our topic for the week. But the Power Rangers Lightning Collection team did some reveals this past week. They had a Fan First Friday. First thing they showed is just a red Ecliptor, which is one of the villains from In Space. This figure was normally Ecliptor was a black and green character. He was red in one single episode. The final episode, he was like a lava red, and for whatever reason, I don't even remember what happened, but they showed that, and they said it's coming out for pre-order pretty soon in 2022. One of the best things I've ever seen any of their fan first do. The reason it's coming out in 2022 is because, and then they cut to a picture of a cargo ship out in the ocean, says, "Your toy is here." I was like, that's just wrong. But that one got me
Nothing,
thinking.
nothing like just stoking the fire of the fans that's all pissed off. We don't have nothing.
The Power Rangers team did not care. They just went there. I was like, that's awesome. That's one of the best pictures I've seen in any of their fan first. But
you know what? Because they know we're going to buy it.
Yeah, and they knew, especially with that being a one-off monster or whatever, and it's a main villain for that season, that it's going to get sold because that was a big season for them. But it was just funny to see how they played that out. And then, but the main bulk of that show was about the Lightning Collection Zord Ascension project. It's their new Power Rangers Megazord, and they're saying that they're not. They started off with the Mighty Morphin one because it's the most iconic. It's an 11.5-inch tall. It's supposed to come out in August of next year.
1/144th scale. When I read that, I was like, "What in the ever-loving shit is this?"
It's the same scale they use for a lot of models, and it just means it's 144th times, less than the size it should be.
The scale threw me off. It's almost like ordering a Royale with cheese. I mean, I just feel like, the legacy ones we got a few years back before Hasbro took over are probably the nicest Zords we've got and we'll get at this point. As far as true to scale, die cast, nice, posable. I mean, I haven't bought any of the Hasbro Zords either, so I can't knock them.
I haven't either. I can't judge them. Now, this is completely different from how they're doing their normal ones. Now, the Legacy, I think, was better because it was, die-cast metal. This is all plastic again. Now, I will give them that they tried to add a bunch of features into this. The only thing that this has to me over the Legacy ones is the posability, because they even went to the point of making, like, ab crunches on the Tyrannosaurus dinosaur so he can bend over and all. And then when you got, like, the saber-tooth tiger and Triceratops for the feet, the heads actually start to get onto a pivot so you can actually have an ankle tilt to them and stuff. So you can get more posability.
Did you see the little sad people that come with it? They were almost like the little green army men, but they're from what color it is to whatever ranger. It's like they took no time to say, you know what, at least let's put 3 white diamonds on them.
Yeah.
You can leave the rest of them, whatever.
Put you know what they look like, though? The original Thunder Megazord actually came with little things like that, and they all fit inside the little circular chest piece. And I actually still have them somewhere, but that's exactly what they are. They're just little plastic molds. It's the same thing you got you got them with the Ark as well, because you've got an Ark, right? So you got the Rodimus and stuff that came with it. It's the same thing.
You know what? I'd far rather just have a chest piece that removes, and you have like a little diorama in there that's with some glass over it. It can be a picture or a sticker, what the fuck ever. I'd far rather have that myself. It just feels like, okay, that would be cool.
So, and I think that this Zord project, I'm not going in for it because the price tag is $165.99. It comes out in August of next year. The reason I'm not going in for it, though, is just because of what I already have. It's not worth trying to swap out to another one or put another one in here. I don't have the space.
For me to get rid of what I have on display, I have to feel like it's an upgrade.
Yeah, and that's price. And I think that's what leads us into the crowdfund project talking, right? I don't understand why did they go to the Zord Ascension project and do it this way versus making it a crowdfunded project and giving you more inside that and building it a little bit more sturdy. And I'm using that as an example, but that's one of those things that could have easily went to a crowdfunded project. But since we were talking about that, why don't we just go ahead and dive into that, because the crowdfunding and the Haslab all together, I think you can't talk just the Haslab without talking crowdfunding and stuff anyway, right?
Yeah.
But let me ask you this question, Star. What do you think about the crowdfunded projects?
I'm actually a fan of them. I think it gives the fans a chance to get something that we wouldn't typically get. Because let's face it, some of these things we want are just beyond the scope and realm of reality as far as, pricing, and they can't just, they pay per inch on shelf when they put them in, and to justify putting them on, in retail, they have to know it's going to fucking sell. $300 figures do not just typically sell in a Walmart, a Target, where, so forth and so on. So that it's going to be a retail online deal.
Yeah.
So I get it. I like it. I'm a fan of it. And let's face it. You'd have never got a Sentinel like what we got. You wouldn't have got the Sky Striker. You wouldn't have got Galactus. The new generation WWF ring would have never, ever
No.
been an option. I mean, so I'm a fan of them myself. I think that the Star Wars team, that they put things out a little too close together with some other things. And on top of that, I think they just overestimated the fact that Star Wars fans, as feverish as we are for things and our love, and I think they just banked on the success of the Black Series a little too much.
Yeah.
Because, the fans of that series, they're very, very feverish. Time something hits the shelf, it's gone within seconds, and the next thing you know, the figures on eBay go on for $100, and they thought that they would just clamor and take this no matter what,
Yeah.
and hold their ankles, and they didn't.
And I'm like you. I'm a fan of the crowdfunded projects. I think they give you a way to get something, like you said, you wouldn't have normally got. Because if you think about a business, you can't just spend a ton of money making this mold for this gigantic figure and then put, 50,000 of them out there and 10,000 sell. And you can't put 10,000 of them out there, or you can't. And the goal and the people want is a 50,000 level, right?
Well, I mean,
So you're
it's one
damned if
thing
you
to
do, or
take
you're damned
a
if you
team of
don't.
3 guys and say, okay, sculpt me something as a concept. Okay, they spend X amount of time and X amount of clay, screws, so forth and so on. But they haven't went as far as the mold and going to production and all that. I mean, there are 2 different animals there. So,
Yeah.
Hasbro, even, with what they put into the Rancor situation, they only have X amount of dollars in it, and it's nowhere near what it'd be if they just were trying to market this for Toys R Us shelves.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. You're not going to sell as many as a typical retail because people are going to look at it like, I can't spend $300 on that, except for the very rabid fan or a Christmas present for your child. And that's the only Christmas present they're getting. That's their big
How
present.
many
That's
times
it.
have you been to a Toys R Us? You remember just before they shut down here in the States, probably a year prior to them shutting down, they started carrying the high-end quality lightsabers, the real
Yeah,
effects. Well, I say high-end, they're mid-level, I guess, so to speak, in the terms of scope of things. But they're pretty damn nice, lightsabers, and they were going for what? Like $100 to $200, somewhere in that range. Typically 180 maybe. Okay, you saw that in there, and it's like, holy shit, these are really nice. Can't believe they're in Toys R Us. But you didn't throw it in the buggy
no,
because of the price. I mean, you got to look at how many of these figures that I won't see anywhere else because I don't live in a town that has a Toys R Us can I pick up versus that?
right. And that's the same thing for me, right? I was just, unless it was something that I was dead set on, like I was going to get the Red Ranger's power sword, right? I was dead set if I found I was going to get it. So I dropped the 125, $130, whatever it was when it came out for it. But if I'd have walked into the store and they had, the Real Effects lightsaber, as much as I like them, I'm not going to drop $100 on it because I can go grab 5 figures for that, right? At that time. Now it's like 3 figures at this point in time, but
Yeah,
prices
so
keep
it's getting
going up.
there.
But that's why I like the crowdfunding though, because you can get behind it, and you can back it. Now for the company, like we talked about, it's better financially for them because they're not sinking a ton of money making a production run that may or may not sell. That's anything they make, that's a guess. Is it going to sell or is it not? You know that Star Wars is going to sell, but do I know if Ula from the Rancor, the dancer from Jabba's Palace, is going to sell more than a Luke? I highly doubt that, but how would I know until I make it? Unless you've never made it, right?
Well, if you tease it as a crowdfunding thing, you see what the demand is there or not.
Yes.
Versus, I mean, it's a gamble. I mean, that's the thing that kind of probably toy companies that went in and out and during the 90s that went under were probably due to things like this where they banked on properties, because they didn't know until they hit the shelves what it was going to do.
Yeah. And I think that there's always some play into how you track that too once it goes out to a store and say, okay, all the stuff sold. Well, did it sell or did it sell because it went on discount and then went to Ollie's and you picked it up for $5?
Yeah.
So it still sold, but I didn't make the same profit margin. Whereas when you're doing that crowdfunding, you say, okay, every one of them's got to sell at this or it's not sold. And then you can really track your results. Did it really sell or did it not?
Yeah, I mean, if
What
you're
was it
selling
just
at retail versus cents on the dollar, it's a big difference.
Yeah. But I think there's another thing too in all of it. There's we're talking crowdfunded where the crowd's got to get behind and you got to reach a goal or it's not made, which is a great model if you're saying, okay, I'm not going to spend the money to make this unless we get enough people. But there's also that made to order function too, right? So like a Super 7 is a perfect model of that. They make the Thunder Tank, they make the Turtles Party Wagon. They tell you we're going to make it no matter what. So whether we sell 5 or 500 or 500,000, it's going to get made, and this is the price of it to get it made. Now, for a smaller company, that's probably the way to go because can you really get the crowd to fund in and get enough people to buy into it at that price?
Well, Super 7 isn't, I mean, I'm not knocking the brand by no means. I mean, they put out a really quality product, and I like a lot of the things they are doing, but they're just not well known enough, I think, to be ballsy enough to do crowdfunding yet.
Right.
Hasbro can get away with it.
Well, and Super 7 has very small and limited footprint in a plant. That plant is not making just their stuff. They work with plants that they might make their plastic figures and they might make plastic pipe for PVC pipe or whatever, right? But the thing is they can go and say, okay, I want 5 of these. We know what it's going to cost us to make this. And then we know what it's going to cost to make one. So I say I need 5 of those in a batch. It's not going to cost them any more or any less because they're only taking up one limited production run inside this company. For Hasbro, who owns their own toy making company, they've got to make a certain amount of batch or they've lost money. If we don't make at least 50 of these, we've lost money. Well, if I can only sell 10, why would I do
They probably
a made
spend
to
more
order
in
function?
assembly than they do, honestly, in the plastic that they're, producing the molds from.
Yeah, and that's what I say. There's a difference in those two different models, but I think there's a place for both of them in the market because a small company can do a made to order and you can get it. I wonder sometimes, if they'd have done something like that with some of the stuff from Hasbro, though, and I'm using them as an example. If you'd have done something different with that Zord Ascension project, said it's a made to order and we're going to put this stuff in it, so it's going to cost this, would people have bought into that more? I mean, it still sold out for what they had, but we don't know how many they sold. Was that 1,000 or was that 12,000? At least when we're backing the project, the crowdfunding, we know what we're getting.
And how many people do you think probably was like, I want to back this, but I don't even want to waste my money and tie my money up into this until I know what's going to go over?
Well, I think that's one of the things that affects us crowdfunding because if you look at the charts of them, they all have that. They all sell quickly, plateau, and then the ones that finalize, they end up hitting. As soon as they hit their mark, you see a steep incline in their sales again.
Yeah, well, once I have noticed is you see this initial boost off, and it's like once they're in the atmosphere, it's kind of like just teetering, but then if it reaches its goal, then it skyrockets, and you have this huge, burst of people that jump on the wagon at the last minute. But
and that's something you won't see in a made to order setup, right? Because they're going to buy as they buy.
No, you didn't have that problem with the Thunder Tank. I mean, you either give them your $4.99 and you got a damn Thunder Tank in 2 years, or you didn't, and you were going to be jealous in 2 years. Because I know myself, I'm going to be an envious green motherfucker in about another year when those start hitting, and I see people with the beautifulness of the Thunder Tank, and I don't have it. So if any of our listeners want to send a Hassel something for Christmas, it's the season to give, motherfuckers.
You'll get the Hot Wheels Thunder Tank.
You know what? I wouldn't turn it down at this point, but I'm just, I would, I'm kind of, I've been on the edge so many times of getting that, but I can't justify it at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's a place in the market for this stuff, and I don't want to see either one go away. It's just, I don't think, and this is where I think we go into the Haslabs specifically. I don't think they planned very well for how they did these. So, and even the made to order stuff, like they're doing the party wagon now for Super 7, but they waited in a year. Last year at this time was when we were selling the Thunder Tank, or early this year, like January or whatever. But it's December now, and they're starting to sell the party wagon, but that's a year apart. So if I need to save some money, I can afford to do that to get them right.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to buy one $500 vehicle a year versus Hasbro trying to slump them together. Let me ask you this. I know it's not time for nerd out, but I'm gonna ask you a question anyways. What would have been your tiers for the Rancor in your view, to make it work?
I would have still done the Gamoran Guard because that's a given. Yeah. I think I think for me, tier 2 maybe would have been Ula, the dancer from Jabba's Palace, because I can't even find the last time they made one of her, if they ever have. I'm sure they
I'm
have, but I
thinking
haven't
Power
seen
of
it.
the Force, and I'm talking about Kenner Power of the Force probably.
So, I mean, it's been forever, and that would have been one the fans would have bought into because how many people have that in their set somewhere in their Black Series? I would have probably still done a Luke, but I might have tried to change up a little bit. But I think for me, the one that was missing besides Ula was the Rancor Keeper, and I know they threw him in at the end of it, but it wasn't a new mold or anything. It's just, hey, here's the same one. We're just going to throw it in a different package, and you can get it with him because they were failing.
They banked on the retro cards a little too much.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, that's worked out really well for Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four and some of these properties where we're basically buying repainted figures, for the retro package we had as a kid. But that's not crowdfunding. These are the $30 figures versus, a
Yeah.
huge, a light bill.
Now, what would have been really cool though would have been if they had said, okay, let's do a diorama that has the door that actually slides up and down that kills the Rancor and have that in there. That would have been a cool thing to have with it.
You know what? I might would have swayed me right there. I'm not gonna lie, Monster. That would have probably swayed me a little.
Instead, we got a pile of bones and the rock that Luke throws to shut the door.
You got a pile of bones and a fucking cardboard backing.
Yeah, and that's where I say it.
It was almost like an insult to the fans to me.
Well, I think so. Let's dive into that some because the Proton Pack got back at over 300% of the goal.
Stickers.
Sky Striker went to 167%. Now they didn't reach their last tier, but they unlocked all the rest of them. And Rancor failed. So what made the Rancor fail? And we've been touching on some of the tiers, right? We didn't think the tiers were acceptable.
No.
And you kind of have to somewhat believe that because as soon as they showed the tier 3 and 4, as soon as they showed Salacious Crumb, Luke Skywalker, people are like, no, and they backed out the money. They actually lost sales the day that they premiered that stuff.
Well, you had to have a Luke with that, without doubt. But I think that it's a basic Luke figure we have a dozen of. The only difference is this was the first without the pins. Was that correct?
Yeah, it's a new mold, so
it's a new mold
but
system
how different
of what
is the
we're going
mold?
to have a dozen of later. Because let's face it,
Yeah,
everything moving forward is going to be pinless.
yeah, that's their goal now.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not like you're not at some point going to have a Return of the Jedi Luke pinless.
Yeah, and I think that here's one. No matter what, I think that they did not listen to the fans on this one, and that's one of the biggest reasons they failed. Now, don't get me wrong. Let me say this up front first. You cannot always go by what the fans ask for when you make this stuff, right? We ask for some stuff that just engineering wise or money wise is never going to work. I would love to have.
We want a cat's lair this tall from my floor up, this big for $200. I mean, let's be honest. This is the kind of realm of shit
happen.
we want. God no. Unless they build it out of cardboard, we get the diorama. But this is what fans want. They want more for a product for their money than is feasible.
And and that's when you get into that. Yeah, you can't listen to fans. But when the fans are saying, "Hey, just give us something that we want, and we'll still pay you the money," we'll pay you the extra money. I wanted a Quasar. I can't find him in the States. I paid a little bit more for him in Canada. Now, by the time I got clearance, it became the same price, but he would have been like $5 more up there versus here, just because of the price difference.
I honestly believe they would have been successful. The figure selection that they had, I mean, pretty much all those have to go with it, with the exception of the little creature beside Java.
Now, Salacious.
Yeah, I couldn't think of his name for nothing, but I mean, with the exception of him, he could have went or not went. I think if they hadn't insulted the fans enough with the cardboard backing and the bones, like they made a big deal out of these bones.
Yeah, and I didn't get it.
If they'd give Ula or whatever, and as opposed to the bones and the cardboard, I think that would have tipped the scales enough. And you probably wouldn't even have had to do the retro packaging, honestly, with the other figures. I mean, they wouldn't have felt as insulted. You just got, okay, we got these 4 figures here. I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
versus a sack of bones that, let's face it, any of us could go to Hobby Lobby around Halloween time. And and I'm not somebody that's going to build dioramas. I'm not. I see them online. They're beautiful. They're wonderful. I know people have a ton of time and skill to do these things. But your average person can go to Hobby Lobby around Halloween, pick up a little sack of bones for 97 cents, and just throw them in front of the Rancor and had the same damn thing.
yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. I don't. One of the reasons I think they failed is because they didn't listen to the fans, right? They just said, "Hey, you'll buy whatever for it," and they tested us, and we said, "No, not this time." But I
They
think
banked
something
on
else.
it. I think they knew that Star Wars fans were just ravenous enough to take. Well, they thought they would just hold their ankles and say, "Yes, sir, give me another,"
Yeah.
and they did.
Well, and I think one of the other big reasons for me that I believe it failed because we ran 3 labs at the same time.
That, yeah,
So all of us who are into that stuff for the most part are that you got a few that are a fan of just one or the other thing. Like there's certain people that are just Star Wars fans. They don't do anything else, right? But most of us are fans of 80s properties. Well, Return of the Jedi was what, 82, 83?
yeah.
Ghostbusters was 84. G.I. Joe was 80, 83, 84, 85. Why did you give us 3 of those things knowing that we only got so much money and so much shelf space at the same time? Even if it wasn't shelf space, I couldn't afford all 3 of those at one time.
How would
Which
you
one was I
feel
going
as
to
a
go
Star
in for?
Wars team knowing that not only Ghostbusters, but even G.I. Joe pulled a sticker package as a tier and beat you?
Yeah, well, not only that,
Ghostbusters pulled 2 different sticker packages, but even the Joes, all they pulled was a Cobra emblem sticker package and 2 Cobra figures to go along with
yeah,
your retro figures and because I kept saying an ultra rare Cobra Commander. He looks 100% 84 vintage Cobra Commander. I see nothing different.
that's all it was.
I see nothing different to make him ultra rare, other than the fact now they may have pulled the straight arms because the original 82, 83s, which is what makes there's a version of Snake Eyes out there that's like ridiculously priced.
Yeah.
He doesn't swivel this way. He only does up and down. I think that Cobra Commander may do that to set him apart, but you know what I mean.
But even with that, if you're looking at it and you're like, all right, we got all 3 of these things. First thing you're gonna say is, which one can I? How many can I afford? Then you gotta say, which one can I afford? If it's only one or if it's 2, which ones can I afford, right?
Well,
And then
yeah,
you
I mean,
gotta look and say, okay, which ones do I have space for?
it is a
And
holiday season. Most of us have families.
yeah,
These are adult collectors that buy these things. Let's be honest.
you're not
Very
buying this for a
rarely is
kid.
your average 20-year-old buying this shit.
Yeah.
No one under 20 is buying them. I wouldn't think. I would be surprised. And if we have any under 20-year-old listeners, God bless you. I'm happy. You were brought up right by your parents. But I would venture to say most of the people buying these things are our age. Are in the realm of that. You got families to buy Christmas for. You can't buy 3 Haslabs.
No.
Support your wife, your husband, your kids, Christmas or friends and family and whatnot. It's not feasible.
No. And then when you're looking at it for the price,
But
I
do I
think,
want to go to work for you because you're making too much damn money?
yeah. Well, I think one of the things that comes up with this stuff too that I think is a fail sometimes for it is when you're talking about you trying to buy the best one for the price and you're trying to say, okay, which one can I afford? Which one am I going to go with? So the first thing you're looking at is which one is my favorite? If Ghostbusters is your favorite property, you're going to go for the Proton Pack. But if they're all kind of equal in your mind, then you got to look at them and say, okay, which one am I getting the best value for my money? You got to look at the scale of them. I didn't think that the Sky Striker, as much as I thought it was great and had all these features and stuff, for the scale of it to be the vintage scale, the 3.75-inch figures and the O-ring figures, I didn't think it was worth the price they were asking for it.
Well, honestly, most people are never going to take that Sky Striker out of the box because it's coming in your OG,
Yeah.
GI Joe box. So it's going to stay in there, and the box will be displayed. So you've got a $400 piece of cardboard that's going to be displayed basically because regardless of the content within the cardboard, you never open it. The Proton Pack, I feel like it is one that you will be able to open display. It look beautiful within your collection. If you have a grand man room like what you have and I have here, you can display that within your man room, and it'll be a great diorama set that's just like, holy shit, that's movie quality. That's great. I feel like it's one that I think you could probably rebox and it not be a problem.
Well, not only that, but it's a 1-to-1 scale. It's the size the pack should be, so you can put it
Yeah.
on display. If you wanted to do cosplay with it, you could. If you gave me the GI Joe Sky Striker and the classified series scale, the 6-inch figures, even if it went back up to about the $300 to $400 range, I might have went in for it then, because I'm saying this fits the current set of stuff I'm buying. This doesn't fit
Yeah.
old stuff that I'm not going to take out and I'm not going to do
Well, you
anything
know what?
with.
If you didn't want to do a vehicle that big and a classified, I get it because that's a lot of plastic. But you know what? I would probably buy like a Locust, the Tiger Force boat.
Yeah,
You know, something that a 1 to 2 figures could fit in. You don't have to have nothing grand. I mean, I would buy. It doesn't have to be a damn jet this big because let's face it, for it to be classified size, it would have
yeah,
to be that big.
it's going to have to be like that, right?
So I mean, if you wanted to pick a vehicle that could be in the realm of this right here, around the Thunder Tank, or maybe 500 bones. I mean, if you do it right, you know,
It's
I would buy
it's
something like that.
more conceivable to me.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, well,
eh,
it's in line with the current line of things. Nobody's collecting 3 3/4 anymore unless you're a vintage collector.
yeah,
And even then, are you wanting to drop $400 into something that's not vintage? Because as
yeah,
nice as this is, I mean, believe me, I was a fan when I seen the ejectable seats with a little fire under them. I was like, "Holy shit, that looks really cool!" But you had to pull it out of the box. Once again, you have to break MOC for that, and I think that's one of the few if you buy as a collector, you're going to keep MOC.
with that being mostly for a retro collector, I don't think they're going to take it out of the box. Now,
Oh,
if that was a modern type item, I think it would have, but I think that almost killed the GI Joe project. Honestly, I mean, just the scale of it and
they
what it
got lucky.
was.
They got lucky.
I think if they that's the positive for them. So if they'd all been running at different times, they probably all would have got funded, right? So
Well, the proton pack, you know, people are taking it out of the package. Sentinel, the Galactus, he's coming out. Rancor, had he got funded, people would have taken it out of the package because the
sure.
resale is going to be there. Like I promise you right now, if you look on eBay, somebody is selling a Unicron on there that they have displayed out of package, and it's an ungodly price at a resale.
We have a few collectible stores here, and they have some in there for like $1,500, and they're
Yeah,
out of the package.
but the Sky Striker is going to be one that if it comes out of the box, people are going to be like, "Yeah,
Well, and I think that I said if all three of these had been run separate times, they probably all would have got funded.
oh
Running them
yeah,
together, you had to make choices. People made choices, and I think what saved GI Joe is the fact they did run together with the Rancor as well as Proton. If it had been just Proton Pack and GI Joe, I think GI Joe still would have failed. But when the Rancor failed, all those people who were backing it said, "Okay, well, I was planning on backing something anyway, and I got the money, so let me go to my other property." Because then, as soon as people pulled out of Rancor the first time, the proton pack shot up, and then when they pulled out the second time, the final day when the Rancor wasn't moving and it actually had some decrease, GI Joe jumped 5 percentage points. It's like, okay, so those people went and spent the money there then, since they had already allocated some money. Like, I want to get something, so I'm going to go to the next one I want, which is now GI Joe, if I've already got proton or if I'm not doing the proton pack.
Let me ask you this, Monster. Do you feel like Hasbro will eat the humble pie? Well, they need to wait 3 to 6 months and try the Rancor again with better tiers? Or
I
do
would
they
think
go the route of the the Marvel team and say, no, you poked me in the eye and now I'm saying fuck you?
I think that you will see them. This is just my opinion, right? But I think that their next crowdfunding project will go back the way of the Vintage Collection, because they succeeded with Java's Barge, they succeeded with the Razor Crest. They saw Black Series didn't work for the Rancor. Now there was reasons why it didn't work. I don't know if they'll eat the reasons why and understand them. I think they'll just say, "Hey, we couldn't sell the black one, so we're going to go back to the vintage ones because we know we can get them funded."
And I hate that because I like the Black Series myself.
Oh, I
And
do
would
as
love to
well.
see something Black Series scale. You know, If they done a carbonation chamber Black Series,
That would be neat.
I would probably drop about $600 on that, honestly. But it would have to come with the right figures. I mean, you would have to have a Han in and out of carbonite, and they've already got a Han in and out of carbonates. I mean, you're not really. Those would be repaints I would accept.
That's
Which,
fair.
don't get me wrong, your Han would have to be coatless, the flap down. So you got a
Right.
torso retooling is really all you have on Han. The Carbonite is just, hey, pull him out of the Amazon exclusive box. He's there.
Yeah.
Boba Fett and a Vader. Maybe the little guy, that worked the controls. I forget the name of what they are. They were in the Mandalorian. But those figures there, I'd probably drop about $600 on that. But it would come out of the box. I promise you. That will be displayed on like a kitchen table in the dining room.
So let me ask you this then, Hassel. Do you think, based on the results that they've had with these last three here, how do you think that changes or affects their future projects?
I worry that the Star Wars team will be gun shy to do a Black Series again. I think very much like what you're saying with the vintage. They've got a proven track record with a 3 3/4.
Yeah.
Which I hate because myself, I'm not a 3 3/4 anymore. I mean, just my collection has progressed beyond that from after childhood. I mean, I got some 3 3/4 vintage stuff still, but
I do as well, but I'm not
I don't
buying
buy
anything
I
new.
buy nothing new. 3 3/4. The last 3 3/4 stuff I bought was when the Joe 20th anniversaries or 25th,
Same
whichever
here.
I saw. I went into that and I bought two of each, so I could have open and carded.
You and I were doing
And
the same thing because we were buying them together. So
yeah, so that's probably the last 3 3/4 I bought. I mean, and here I am, years later, I've got a handful of vintage Joes that are still 3 3/4, but they're all vintage. I have a handful of Star Wars stuff that's I wound up selling like pretty much 90% of my 20 to 25th anniversary Joes that were that scale. You just at the time, I had them like aligned along the top of my
yeah,
man room, and it looked really nice. But you progress and you move on, and then when you start getting like 6 and 7 inch figures that are far more detailed, they look so much better. They're beautiful pieces, and they're even displayed better in the box. You can't justifiably stay at that scale. So I kind of worry that they will regress, so to speak, and go back to that because it's worked.
what do you think it's just for that line, or do you think it's Hasbro in general? They'll go back on doing any crowdfunding for or limit what they're doing.
Well, I think it's a learning curve for them. They're going to probably sit back and say, okay, we had too many at one time. I mean, if we're saying this, they got a team of people far smarter than us that are
Yeah,
looking at one another saying, hey, we might have shit the bed here and had too much going at one time. Let's limit these to one per quarter or,
and that's what they were doing, which is what's surprising. Or maybe when one ends, another's starting up right away. But I mean, it's still there's a break in there, right?
well, you get greedy at some point, and the pandemic for what it was. I mean, it just put everybody's nuts in a vice. Even the big toy companies. The demand's there, the supply's not. And with crowdfunding things, you have revenue that's coming in today that you don't have to produce for 2 years.
Yeah.
So they're probably looking, okay, we can make a quick buck right now with this crowdfunding stuff. Because let's face it, regardless of what we pay for it, it's a massive markup. Their cost is here, our cost is here. That's the nature of the beast. That's how they make money. That's why they're rich.
Yeah, that's why they're in business. I mean,
Yeah,
you are in
that's
business
why
to make
they're the
money.
seller and we're the collector. So they're looking
So,
at this is a quick cash swap now.
so let me pause you for 1 second there and say this, because I think a lot of people, especially collectors, are bad about the fact of saying, "Hey, well, they should give us this and that, and they should make this for free, and they should sell." look, dude, it's a business. You're in business to make money. If you ain't making money, you ain't gonna be in business.
No.
So if you ain't selling and making a profit, it's not gonna be there. So all the people that complain about,
I will say, I think they're the teams that come up with the thoughts behind this and the sculpts and everything. They have a passion like we do.
yeah,
They're probably just very skilled collectors for the most part. But the guy behind the machine, he wants this right here. He's all about what you put in his wallet, and I don't blame him. That's how you make a successful
that's
business.
what a business is, right? They are in the business to make money. If they don't make money, they're not in business. If they're not in business, we ain't gonna get any of this stuff. So
Well, that's why places like Kenner that were so successful in the '80s are no longer in business today. I mean, they were bought Kenner Toy Biz. I mean, these were companies that were worth millions of dollars at one point, had massive properties, and they went out of business and were bought for pennies on the dollar by bigger companies because they didn't have the vision and foresight. They were probably a little more fan oriented than business oriented.
well, that's a fair on Kenner. Toy Biz might be a different story. They actually bought Marvel, so that and Marvel went bankrupt, so that killed them. Along with the what was it, Panini stickers or whatever else they owned too that went bankrupt. So they shot themselves trying to own their own stuff. So
didn't they also own Pogs?
Yeah, so whatever licenses they bought, they tried to buy the properties too, and then they just it sunk them. But
what a colossal failure was the Pogs.
But I'm hoping that they'll listen to the fans. Though maybe look at the scaling of some of this stuff. Say, okay, we can sell it better if we do this scale. We can sell it. I don't understand why they didn't do something like the Power Ranger Zords as a crowdfund project and give fans what they want there. They try to make that for mass retail, and the price is almost the same as it's getting close to some of the crowdfunding deal, like the Star Saber for Transformers. So I was like, I didn't get that, but hopefully they'll listen to the fans and do something. My concern though is that they will say, well, we got 2 out of 3 successfully, so we can run 2 or 3 at a time, man, and still come out in the good. I'm worried that they're going to think that at some point because they did have 2 succeed at one time. I'm like, don't do that, because if I am ever going to go in for another one, I can't do 2 at once.
No, and it sucks to have to choose as a collector because you really are like torn.
Yeah, it's really hard. It really is, and it's especially if you like all those properties, right? For me, none of these were enough for me to go in. Like I said, if that had been a classified series vehicle, I might have had to consider it, but I wasn't.
I love Joe and I love Star Wars. Had Rancor's super sweet. I mean, and the more I seen of it, the cooler it got looking. It wasn't enough to reel me in. Had it been maybe like Black Series, Jabba the Hutt, Throne Room type deal, okay, carbonation chamber, I'd have dropped some money. I love G.I. Joe. I mean, I got the Right Chicago on my arm. No one can doubt me when it comes to the Joes. But it was vintage 3 3/4. Had to be classified like what you said. A number of things would have sold me. I mean, any vehicle pretty much I would have probably went to bat for.
So let me ask you this question, and this is a broader question to the entire crowdfunding, not just Hasbro, but do you think anybody looks at these and says, what can we learn from that? Or do they look at it and say, okay, I'm not sure crowdfunding is the way to continue going. Do you think anybody stops doing them, or do you think they continue on?
I don't think it spooks anyone as far as crowdfunding. I think they continue on. But I do think they use it as a learning tool as to, okay, we can't insult the fans and just assume no matter how much they love a property, they're going to take a low grade tier. I mean, it's just not.
Yeah.
And sometimes our tier expectations are ridiculous. I mean, I'm willing to admit that as a fan, but you got to respect us enough to at least put something out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping we get to see a full. I hope it doesn't go away. I kind of like it. Like I said, there's certain things that you're not going to get. Like I bought the Galactus. I'm not going to get a Galactus in that scale otherwise. And that was my main. Comics has always been my number one. Then probably Power Rangers, then my other cartoons and stuff. But that's the stuff I'm going to go in for most likely. And if they come up with a Power Rangers Haslab, my dumbass is probably going to buy into it because it depends on. I mean, especially if you get into a role play thing like a new Power Sword or the full Power Blaster or something, or you get into a better Zord set or something, that would be something I would go into, right? But yeah, I'd like to see them continue going on with that kind of stuff. But with that, we're actually a little close on time. So if you're ready, we'll go into the Nerd Out section, which for any new fans out there who haven't been here before, this is where we ask questions pertaining to the topics we've been talking about. And it's a random question that each of us has prepared. And we don't know what it is beforehand, so you'll get honest and truthful answers that sometimes will stump the crap out of us because we've had a few of those in the past. But I think I went first last time, so you get to go first this time.
Well, saying we're talking about crowdfunding, and that was the major bulk of our topic today. Let's say, were you to do back a crowdfunding type project, what would your crowdfunded project be? And would it be, I mean, you can do any property you want. It doesn't have to be exclusive to this brand. But whatever it is, would you rather have the Hasbro Pulse team do it or the Super 7 Four Horsemen do it?
Ooh.
Kind of a dual question.
Yeah, that's a good one though. I would probably want. I think I would want to see some more in depth. I think I'd have. You know what I want? I want a 6-inch scale Rhino from Mask.
Ooh.
I would like to see that made, and I think with it being Mask, I would probably want the. As much as I love what the Four Horsemen stuff does, I think sometimes they over-engineer and overprice stuff. I think I would want the Hasbro Pulse team that does G.I. Joe to do it. And I'm picking them specifically because I've watched a lot of their stuff and I watch all their fan first. That is probably the most enthusiastic and into their product out of all the rest of them. Like Star Wars is pretty knowledgeable in their product, but you can tell sometimes they don't seem as quite as enthusiastic about the figures as they do about just Star Wars in general. And then you get into the Power Rangers team. They're knowledgeable on the subject, but again, they're kind of like, hey, we're doing it, but they kind of come off very corny because I think they feel like it's still a kid property to them, not necessarily an adult one. A couple of them. There's one or two of them, especially one who does a lot of design work, and I can't remember her name, is like Loretta or something like that. She's really into it. But then you get into
really hot too, so man, it can't help.
But then the G.I. Joe team, every time you see them, they are so into it, and when they get the figures in their hand, they start showing them to you on this Fan First Friday. They're like moving them and playing with them. They're like, I didn't even notice this.
Are you going classified scale, or are we 3 3/4 in?
Classified. I want a classified scale Rhino, which is going to be a huge ass vehicle, but
I
think that would be awesome. And then you could do the tiers as like, okay, if you get to, say you start out with the Rhino and you start with Matt Tracker and Bruce Sato, who drove the Rhino, or what was the other guy's name, Alex or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Say you do 2 of those, and then maybe another tier is another Mask figure, and maybe you get to the 4th tier and it's like the Condor, the green motorcycle that turned into a helicopter. Maybe that's your ultimate stretch goal. I would go into those.
That's pretty legit. That is, wow, that's nice, actually.
And I debated because I'd like to see Power Rangers Zords and stuff too, but they're still making Zords of different types. So why even bother doing a HasLab at this point? Or, they haven't made a lot of role play weapons. The few they have, Hasbro has not done a great job with. But at the same time, there's people out there actually making real swords that look like that. I'll just go buy one of those at the convention for $100 if they screw up.
Yeah, I've seen several real sort of elements that look great. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so I just want a different property we don't normally get, and Hasbro does own Mask as well because they bought all that from Kenner. So I'd like to see them do something with that, but there's nothing going on for them right now. So that would be an interesting one. But what about you? What would you pick, and who would you have do it?
Well, I'd already threw out the carbonation chamber, so I'm gonna veer off the path of what I've already spoken with. I'm gonna go off the right lane here, and I'm gonna say I allow the Four Horsemen and Super 7 to do this for me, and they're gonna do a command center for me.
That would be awesome.
Inside the command center. I mean, you don't have to have the outside anything, but I would like to have a decent looking Zordon. The command center with the controls and whatnot. Alpha 5, and maybe an exclusive Ranger or 2. I mean, maybe something off to the side where, the White Ranger was, created. a Ninja or something like that. I mean, you don't give us another. I don't want a Ranger repaint, but throw a Ninja in there working on a White Ranger being created, something to this effect. I mean, that would be pretty cool.
So what if you did that? And let me ask you this, and I know I'm jumping in on your question, but what if you did that as the power chamber, which was the second version, the version from Zeo and Turbo of the command center, and they had and you had walls back there where you could actually put your Lightning Collection Mighty Morphin figures in, because you remember they had the suits all modeled into the power. That would be pretty neat to see.
That would be very cool, and I would have some money on that right there. Because I mean, because were or not that, it would be a Star Wars property without a doubt. So I feel like and I will say I do think the Hasbro team does better detail than Super 7. But I think a lot of that is to the fact that Super 7 is like purposely scaling to cartoon quality looking. So,
and there's more posability in what they give to the Hasbro. They have more points of articulation and they build it into the figures. Whereas, Super 7 says we're going to make it look accurate and we'll limit the posability to get that accuracy and not break the mold when you move.
The Four Horsemen have proved they can do the detail. They're Masters of the Universe line prior to doing the classics or the cartoon look. They proved they've got the chops to do what we want. So I think they would do a great job of doing that. Were it not that, it would have to be a Titanus.
That would be nice.
I would like to see one of those.
So. I foresee some of those coming in that Zord Ascension project. Again, I don't think I'm buying into it because I haven't purchased it yet, but I don't know. That's the only reason I hold back on Zords, is just because they're still doing them of some kind, and I don't think they're gonna spend money and set up time to do a full lab of those while they're producing them in their main line and put them in retail. It would just be competition for themselves. I don't know why they would do that. I guess.
No, and the further they wait on was more than continue the line.
Yeah.
So, what you got, Monster? What's your question?
So I struggle with it because I almost asked the same question you just did, just worded a little bit differently. But I did have a secondary one, and the question I have is if you had to choose, you could only have the made-to-order model for getting your stuff, or the crowdfunding model. Which one would you choose to have? If you can only have one or the other.
Well, man, we're only having one or the other. I'm doing made to order just because I order so much that way. You know what you got. You're not at the mercy. Does X amount, many more fans back it with you. Like when I go to a Big Bad Toy Store, I know for a fact I'm guaranteed this figure. I may wait longer, but I'm guaranteed this figure. If I go on a Walmart shelf, I know it's going to be there when I see it. Versus you seeing it online and then it never being produced.
That's fair.
You remember as a kid, like you would see in Toy Fair or Wizard, you get upcoming previews of figures and then they'd never be produced because something somewhere along the line fell through the cracks and this figure you were promised never got out there in production.
Yeah.
So that's kind of heartbreaking to me.
I can see that. In my answer to that question is I kind of go the other way. I think I would have the crowdfunding only because I believe I like the idea of what you said with the made to order. I know what I'm getting. I'm getting it. I'm promised that one, and whether you buy one or not, I'm still getting mine, right? Yeah. The crowdfunding one, that's the thing that bothers me, is if you don't go in for it and I don't go in for it, and these two people, well, we ain't getting it. Neither one of us is getting it. However, I think that you'll see most companies turn around and completely walk away from the made to order stuff because they wouldn't be able to afford, especially your big companies like the Hasbros, the Mattels. Yeah. Now, Super 7, they can survive off that, but Hasbro, Mattel owning their own factories and stuff, I don't, their production modeling and stuff, I don't think they would probably go bankrupt and walk away from us and say, no, we're either not going to do it because we'd lose the money, or we're going to lose the money and we'll be out of business, and then I'm not getting anything anymore.
Yeah.
That's a hard choice. I mean, there's a place for both of them. I think I'm just curious, hey, if you only could have one, which one would it be?
There's a fine line along the way, and I'd like to see them. I think we've discussed enough in this episode. It's moderation.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah, and picking, I mean, not only moderation but picking the right stuff. Was a Sky Striker really the best thing they could have done for GI Joe?
Honestly, no. I figured it would go, but at the same time, it's like it wasn't. That was going to be the one that wasn't going to surprise me if it was Cookie Monster.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
thought it would have been Cookie Monster before the Rancor, honestly. But
I think they've chose some good ones. Hey, the Razor Crest was a good one because of how popular Mandalorian was. Galactus
yeah.
and Sentinel were great picks, but
Oh God, yeah.
when you look at some of that stuff too, like the Rancor, that was probably a good pick for them. But when you get to GI Joe, Sky Striker was, if you'd have told me it was a $400 full size USS Flag for the 3.75, I'd have probably went in for that.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
So
That's well, we prove we'll buy big figures at ridiculous prices. Because let's face it, how many times have you bought a wave of toys you really didn't want because you wanted to build a figure?
more than once.
I mean, I think we all have a Galactus and an Apocalypse that from a original Toy Biz run of Marvel Legends. That's not that great. Just we one of those, or the original Sentinel, and which I will say, that Sentinel from the first run of Toy Biz Marvel Legends, that one holds the test of time.
It does.
It is the Mark Silvestri version of the Sentinel, where he's got just the right amount of armor versus you get the cables in between the joints. I still have one. It looks really great. I would stand it next to that $400 version any day of the week, but we prove we'll buy that. So why not, instead of chasing figures? Because unless you're lucky enough to buy a wave at all at one time, offline, you're chasing figures. You're going the day, and it's getting harder and harder to be the days of going to various stores to try to chase, track this figure down or that figure down or whatever. And then God forbid if one's a chase figure, you know what I'm saying? You're not opening that bad boy to get a leg out of there.
No. And I think that's another topic for us to cover another time too, is how the ordering and buying models have changed, because it's not stores, it's all online now. But that's probably a topic that if we start delving into now, we'll be here for another 3 hours. So we'll save that for a different episode. So, but for today, I think that brings this episode to a close. But before we leave, Hassel, tell the audience where they can find us on social media.
You may find us on the Twitter. We are there at Nerdy Manroom show.com. Hit us up on there, and we're fairly active on there. We'll holler back at you. We'll talk some little shit to you, or however you want to do it.
And remember, if you enjoyed this video or any of our other content, please give us a like, subscribe, comment, or share. Join us next time as we're going to talk about all things Star Wars. We promise it will happen next week. Until then, live nerdy and long live Rancor. Where is he now?